Um, people know my secret name now. I'm not Leave It to Chef anymore. But let me change my name. Leave It to Chef. I'm a little worn out from last weekend. I did a street party, 160 people in the street, fed them. That was fun. As you might have noticed, our Moroccan chef got sick and we've rescheduled her. So I'm stepping forward. Oh, wait. I'm making bean fudge. It's just like, I've always wanted to make this particular recipe since I've seen black bean brownies. And of course, I tend to be gluten sensitive. So I started thinking about how could we make it without flour? And then I started looking at different recipes online. Now, of course, I've changed the recipe slightly. Your typical recipe is like it's in the chat. It's basically cooked black beans, a couple cans, coconut oil, cocoa powder, sweetener. You can not use sugar if you're vanilla, and then they put salt typically. I don't put salt. And then I've seen some recipes that use dates. Let me switch cameras.
Lots of sugar and dates.
Yeah, I've seen some recipes that use dates, or you can do like Fred said, chocolate nibs instead of cocoa powder. But I like my fudge creamy. So instead of just using black beans, I use garbanzos because I don't know if you've ever had cream sauce made from garbanzos for pasta. It's really creamy. And then I like my fudge with a hint of mint. So I'll put a little hint of mint in mine. But it's really simple. I mean,
And then you mentioned vanilla.
Oh, yeah, and some vanilla. Now, if you don't have regular cocoa baking powder, you can get away with just getting some hot chocolate, which has sugar and cocoa in it, especially if you got the dark chocolate. So different options. Now, one thing is, because I try to do lower salt, if I'm doing the canned beans, it definitely has a lot of salt. So I like to drain it and wash the beans. However, don't do that with the garbanzos. You can drain the water, but save the water because that's creamy juice. You might need to add that to your beans. So to start out, I'm just getting the beans and I'm going to drain them and rinse them out. And you can do it in, a big blender, a regular blender. You might have to do it in increments. You can do it in a food processor, or you can do it with a stick blender. And all of those.
Do you find that one of them makes it more fine than the other?
Yeah, the bigger the blender, the stronger the motor, the finer it is. Yeah. So, and then you can, use your sweetener of choice. You can use honey. You don't really want a liquid sweetener because you're trying to make this thicker as possible. You're trying to put as little liquid in it as possible. And how strong you want the chocolate. I mean, it says 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder for, 2 cans of beans, but you can put less, which I don't ever recommend less chocolate, or you can put more depending on your chocolate preference. I find psychologically, if you don't use black beans, you tend to put more chocolate because you want it to look dark. It's kind of interesting for me that, yeah, if I put in, come on, close that. Oh, yeah. If I put in, let's see, I want to save this liquid. If I put in kidney beans or white beans, I definitely add a lot more. One thing for ease of blending, put your coconut oil on the bottom first. Makes it just a little easier to blend when you have the liquids on the bottom.
Have you ever tried a mixture of beans?
Oh yeah, I mean, like today I'll be using, black beans and garbanzos. It makes it a lot creamier with the garbanzos, but you can just use 2 cans of really any kind of beans. The beans themselves are, of course, pretty high protein, but they're also high in carbs, right? If you read. So let's see here.
But they're complex carbohydrates. They're not simple carbs.
Right. And then, of course, a lot of fiber. And so it's basically a high fiber. So I'm using 3 cans. So mine will be slightly over the recipe the recipe I've included is for 2 cans, but I want a little extra goodness. And you can use any kind of oil, but coconut oil tends to be slightly sweet and lighter. So it's better that way. So there you go. Put the oil in first. Let me rinse these beans. Get a little of that salt off of them. And that's just for me. You don't have to rinse the beans, but I try to be a little more salt free. That was one. This be a really quick recipe. Basically, you just put everything together, and the only thing is save the juice from the garbanzos, because you can either whip that and make like whipped cream, or it makes this more creamy. Rinse it, just get that salt off. And then, I mean, once you blend this all, you just put it in a pan and you put it in the fridge. Or you can freeze them. But what I like to tend to do is put them in the fridge, let it set for an hour, cut the squares, and then put the squares in freezer bags or little sandwich bags, and then freeze those for snacks later.
So you put it in a dish just like you would do a baking dish.
Correct. Yeah.
But you're not going to cook it.
Correct. There's no cooking at all. Yep. You're just letting it set. So strain this juice out. Salt. So I just run a little water through it to get a little extra salt out of it. Canned food tends to be extremely salty for me.
Yep. Yep.
So far I've just got the oil, 2 cans of black beans, and a can of garbanzos. Now we add the sugar. And of course, again, it's the taste, or you can add, this particular recipe is every allergy free unless you happen to be allergic to beans, which I've heard that before. But otherwise, grain free, can be sugar free, dairy free, gluten free, and of course vegan also.
So you can use dates or honey or stevia.
Yep. Usually, of course, I use sugar because I usually don't have a lot of any of those other types of sweeteners. And then the drier the ingredients, I forgot. Let me look at how much sugar does it say to put in? It's not very, it's a lot. So half a cup. So that's way too much. But I'm doing 30% more, so but still it's not that much. All right. And then so yeah, I mean, really, you're looking at 3 ingredients: beans, cocoa powder, and the sweetener, and then a little bit of flavor, because beans themselves don't tend to have much flavor.
Now you have a powerful blender, but if somebody just had the ordinary blender, would it be powerful enough to do this?
Yeah, I've done that in just my regular small blender,
Okay,
but probably not the full bat. Like here, I'm adding another can of beans,
okay.
so maybe. In a food processor. So let's see, cocoa powder, 3/4 of a cup. And again, I'm doing 30% more, so I'll do just like slightly more. You can, if you like your fudge with nuts, I try to make this allergy free because I take this to potlucks and stuff. But you can put nuts in it, or if you want to make it allergy free, you put the allergy free nuts, which what are almonds, cashews, pumpkin seeds. Just, but you want to give it some texture. All right, now just a little bit of vanilla, half a teaspoon. So just barely a shot. And then I like adding a little mint. Now I actually have some fresh mint here. I'll just put some. Just put some fresh mint. It's like, and we'll taste it, but that's pretty much it. Put it all together and blend it. Let's see how well it does. But yeah, the secret definitely is put your oil in the bottom first. Makes it a lot easier to blend.
So you're pulsing?
Yeah, I'm pulsing it, yeah. It mixed everything except the cocoa powder.
And what would happen if you used a little stainless steel bowl and use your immersion stick blender?
It just takes longer,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean. So I think it's too thick, so I'm gonna, let me stir it a little bit here.
Got your aquafaba as a backup too.
Right. Now, one of the things is you're really gonna want to eat all this right now. It does, so basically it's a chocolate sauce, right? So. But yeah, I got the aquafaba from the garbanzo bean here. Add a little bit. Just a little bit. The least amount of liquid possible, the better. Unless you're making fudge sauce. then you don't care how thick it is for stirring it, right? So. So far, I've just put like a tablespoon of liquid each time. Now, I do find out that because this is so tall, it's a real pain to get it out of here. If you have a big food processor, do it in there. Or like Fred said, do it with the stick blender, because it might take longer to stick blend it.
It's easier cleanup.
But then you're not having to scoop it out of here into a container. You could just leave it in your bowl.
Doesn't your blender, the bottom come off so you can open it at the bottom? Most of them do.
This one does, yeah. But
so that helps.
yeah. Now look at this. Can you see?
Wow.
Just like, I mean, that it just looks like chocolate, right? And it's just like.
So you put it in the fridge or the freezer?
I like to put it in the fridge because, so I put it in the fridge. If you put it in the freezer, it'll freeze. And then you'll have to thaw it out to then eat it.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
I put it in the fridge, let it set for an hour, and then I'll cut it into small like squares and put it in like sandwich bags, and then put it in the freezer to save it for later.
Good idea.
So, all right, let me see. Because get a little bit and yeah, you might want to put more sugar in it, but I like it like this, where it's, because some fudges are extremely sweet, right? Now I'm just because, so that's normally how you do it. You make it really thick so it's barely pourable. But because I'm lazy and I want to be able to pour it out really easily, I'm going to put like lots of liquid and make more like a fudge sauce. So then it comes out easier, but then it's not, you know, it's not like a thick fudge. It's more like, yeah, like more like a sauce. So you can see now it's a little more pourable. So, that's pretty much it. You now just get a pan, you know, just like a regular baking pan, or if you're taking it to, you know, if you're taking it to a potluck, you might put it in an aluminum pan to then take it with you. But again, I like putting it in a pan that it's easier to cut it, and then individually wrap them in little plastic bags. So, anybody have any questions? Like,
I do.
go for it.
So,
Oh wait, can you see it pouring? Oh man, it's like, go for it.
so at what point and how would you add, let's say, the dates or nuts at the very end? And would you chop the dates?
I'd put the dates more in the beginning.
So there's not.
I'd probably chop them up and kind of,
Yeah.
you know, to help.
That is your
blend them.
blender, but the finer they chop up, the easier it is to do it.
Yeah.
The nuts themselves, I would add right at the end, because you don't want them chopped up a lot.
Okay.
So one trick is, if you make this too watery, you can add some nuts to it, or if you have some almond flour, to thicken it.
I wonder what would happen if you threw a little peanut butter in there.
Yeah, you could do that. I'm just trying to make this, you know, my primary recipe is make it completely allergy free. So
Mhm. Yeah,
bring the
peanut butter.
potluck so I don't have to like,
Right, so peanut butter
Worry.
wouldn't be good.
No, but that would be a good flavor. Or maybe if you wanted something creamy too, you could do.
Yeah, that's what Reese's cups are, chocolate and peanut
But-
butter.
but I could put in the last of my sunflower butter.
yeah, so
There you
so
go.
there's,
Oh,
you know. Yeah. And the hard part is not to just eat it all right now.
So getting back to the dates, I can imagine that you're using it for the sweetness of the dates, but also I'm just thinking about biting into a brownie that a chunk of date and a chunk of nut with all that creamy chocolatey stuff would be kind of a cool texture. Or, I just depend upon what you want your end result to be. Oh, another flavor thought would be ripe bananas. I mean, you're moving
Well,
away
that
from,
go- yeah, that goes back to the one where we did that with the bananas for the ice cream, kind of.
yeah, we're kind of moving away from a traditional brownie or fudge to a
Right, looking for, alternatives, yeah.
different dessert.
But the main thing is, I didn't do it today, but when I make it for public consumption, I don't use sugar. So then it's also diabetic friendly. If you added bananas, that really increases the sugar. If you add dates, that really increases the sugar.
That's true.
So yeah, I mean, I tried to make something that's, I don't know, friendly for everybody. But I did, tell you the different. So the dates themselves are for sweetening it and it thickens it. You're not really trying to get texture. But you could do at the end, basically once you have it in the pan,
Mhm.
you can sprinkle chopped nuts and or chopped dates on the top for texture and decoration. And it wouldn't be very expensive to just add some on the top instead of in it.
Yeah, because if you were using dates for your only sweetener, you'd be using a lot of dates probably, and they can be expensive. I don't know how many.
Surprisingly, not very many, because dates tend to be really sweet. But you
so
definitely want to not use liquid sweetener, because the more liquid you add. So I mean, I ended up putting in maybe 5 tablespoons of the aquafaba water.
But if it does end up being too thick and you used instead of any kind of, you could use more liquidy sweetener and it would maybe land you with the texture that you want.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
a corn syrup or I don't
Right.
know what else.
Or you can use date syrup. I mean, they have that too. I mean, it's just, you want to have your base be kind of drier. And so there we go.
So I'm behind because my coconut oil was in the fridge and it was rock solid. So now I've got it to a liquid state. So
It doesn't have to be a liquid state completely, but you have to be able to scoop it. Yeah.
It's really good.
Isn't it amazing? I mean,
Yeah.
now I find the ones without the garbanzo beans have a little bit of a grainy texture. Just a little bit, unless you really blend it well. With the garbanzo beans, I find there's a less of you don't have to grind it so much. You have less of a grainy texture. It comes out a little smoother. But otherwise, and then you can also, if you have a smaller blender, just put the oil in and slowly add the beans to it.
Mhm.
Don't just dump them all in. Especially if you're doing the dates. Just add it slowly to it and then add liquid as you're going along to keep that desired texture. So, but super, don't tell people when you bring the fudge, except you know, put a little sign that says, you know, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, for the people who, or you just put it out and people taste it and they're like, oh, this is wonderful. What's in it? And you just basically tell them beans, coconut oil, cocoa powder, and sweetener. So, but again, I put the little mint. I like the little hint of mint. Pretty much in anything chocolate, I end up adding just a little bit of mint. That's me. So, I make what do you call it? I make brownies. Sometimes you can get the little Andes mints and chop them up and add them to brownies. So you have like little mint bites too. So, but super simple stuff that you usually have around. You can keep it around, and it's my go-to to take to potlucks because it can be completely and totally something that everybody can eat. And people tend to not bring desserts too much to potlucks that everybody can eat. It's usually some kind of allergy in it for somebody. So good deal.
Yeah.
All right. Now I have enough for there's no potluck planned, so I'm gonna have to eat a lot of bean brownies or bean fudge. So should I say
Oh,
Oh,
fudge.
fudge.
just like this is actually the half of a Christmas card. Someone sent me this, but I kept it. I thought it was really funny. So all right. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions, or I'll wrap it up and eat a lot of fudge. But yeah, you can make the same one more liquidy and use it as a chocolate sauce over anything. You know,
Yeah, you
just
can put it over ice cream or
make
something.
1 can of beans, and yeah, but I really like it with the garbanzo beans. It just adds that creaminess. So thank you guys.